be where it's not supposed to be. One of the ways we know this, there's a wonderful book called Vibrational Medicine by Richard Gerber. And I can recommend it to people who are watching. And he talks about an experiment with salamander eggs. Now, we don't like to think about experimenting on anything animal, but the experiment was done, and it's really interesting. They're so big that they can be looked at under a microscope. And as they're developing, you can see that there's an energetic, like the electromagnetic field develops that becomes the substrate of the nerves, the bones, the muscles. Before the physical things are laid down, the energetic pattern is laid down first. So it's like this exists. When we talk about the healing energy of the body, we're also talking about an energetic substrate that's like the creation. This is where it's like the creative ground of the physical form, which is our body. And the remedies know how to talk to that and support that and teach that and remind it. Bone is supposed to be here. Calcium is supposed to be here. It's not supposed to be in the heel spur. And all of this information comes from a simple little bottle that looks like this. Oh, look at this. I have calc floor with me. That this is a simple thing you can get for like $7 or $8 in a health food store. Such simple stuff and so healing.
And you can do this with your own yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good thing. I think that there are a couple of things about homeopathy that are especially empowering. One of them is that if you, like, let's say the first time I called Begabati, before I started to study homeopathy, I called her because I had a sore throat. And I said, so what do you have for a sore throat? And she said, well, is it on the left side or on the right? Or both? Is it shiny? Is it red? Are you thirsty? Are you thirsty for hot? Are you thirsty for cold? And I thought, what kind of questions are these? It's like, what do you have for a sore throat? And so I said, I have to call you back, which happens all the time when people say, well, I have to get back to you about that.
You have to think about it.
Yeah. So, and when you work with people for a while, then when they call you with something, they'll say, headache, and they'll say, I know, before you ask me, it's above my left eye, and it's worse when I'm in the sunshine, and it's better if I close it, and I'm more thirsty for cold water than I usually am. But again, what we're doing is creating that constellation. It's not just this one material problem. It's like, no, there's an imbalance, and the way the imbalance is showing up is manifesting in a number of symptoms, and I want to know the whole constellation.
Well, it's interesting. I work as a trainer, exercise physiologist, and so one of my jobs is to teach people how to listen to their bodies in more of a mechanistic kind of, like today I was working with a man his knee hurts. I see him periodically, but he's not one of my regular clients. I see his wife regularly. And I said, well, what about that, is that the same side as the ankle you sprained 3 months ago? So it's sort of that same kind of conversation.
Right.
He said, no, it's the opposite side. And I said, oh, okay, that's because you're still not using that ankle correctly, so you're overusing that knee. But it made a difference to know some of the history of, so, muscles have that, do that. The body uses other things to find balance, so that then you overuse what it's trying to balance, and so you end up with a complex set of symptoms.
Right, because the thing about compensation is it never fixes anything. It just tries to bring you back to zero.
Right.
And so...
something else is gone.
Exactly. So, and that's a really interesting thing to track on. But imagine the difference for a client to have paid that much attention to what makes them feel better and what makes them feel worse, instead of to go to a practitioner and kind of like, this is my problem, you fix it. And you're saying, well, I can't until you can tell me these other things about it. I really like that it shifts the balance back, so that the client and the homeopath are really in a conversation together, trying to understand the nature of the symptoms, the nature of the cause of the symptoms, if we can determine that, and then together working out what the right remedy is going to be.
We call it, homeopathy is like the medicine of the people, because it really puts the power into the hands of the person who's using it. That for acute things, which are things that you might go to a drugstore for, you could go to a health food store and treat yourself with homeopathy. And it's so simple, people can easily learn how to do it for short-term things. And then for long-term things, if you were to go to a professional homeopath, again, it's not this sort of hierarchical relationship where the doctor or the practitioner is the expert and decides what your remedy is going to be and whether it's working or not. I have people come back for follow-ups and say, well, tell me, did the remedy work? And I say, no, I want to listen to you. I want you to tell me if it worked or not. You're the expert in your own body. So we're inviting people to listen to their bodies and to notice things about themselves in a way they never have before. And then we also give them a lot of control over whether, when, how the remedy is taken. And I think that simply giving people control in a health situation is healing in itself, making people feel like they're active participants in their healing.
Right. But you know, all of this, I'm thinking if I didn't know what homeopathy was, and it's such a weird word to start with, and like, what would I know what to do? And you know, if somebody just tries arnica, so arnica is probably, if you could do so much good if all you knew was how to use arnica. You know, so arnica is a lot. One thing we can say about it is that it's a resorber of blood. So if you have a blunt injury, like a sprain or a strain, or you bump yourself really hard, you have a blow, and you would have swelling, then arnica's. Now you said you've used it a lot yourself.
I've used arnica, yeah.
Yeah, and so even if somebody doesn't, if they say this little pill, and then you say just try it.
Just try it. Right.
And
right.
have you had positive experience?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, and giving it to athletes after they've had, you know, particularly tough day or trauma, so that, you know, basically a basic general muscle soreness, you're injured, just take some. And I think the nice thing about using arnica is that it's like, oh, it hurts less. There's a pretty straightforward connection to the effect of arnica if it's what you were supposed to use it for, and because it's generally for acute, people like really go, oh, there it is. And you know, and so it makes a difference. And I've used some other stuff where for more extended injuries, it's like, does it hurt more when you rest it, or does it hurt more after you move it? And we used belladonna, and I can't remember the other one that we've used for the reverse of that. But the whole idea, and you talk about, you know, calling up and saying, I have a sore throat, and then I have to get back to you. How long does it take someone, if they call you up and say they have a sore throat, and you give them, you know, you have to give me my list of things, light and dark and cold and heat and water and not water. How long does it, for people to sit there and evaluate their bodies and sort of figure it out and call you back? Do they call you back the next day, or does it take them a couple of days to?
No, if they have a sore throat, they're getting back fast, and the questions are finite. It's not an endless number of questions. I know Begabati brought some books, and they really do give you some guidelines. Like, you know, the constellations. I know I keep coming back to it, but it's such a good metaphor. You know the constellation Orion, how it has the belt, you know, the three stars in a line. And even if you can't see anything else from Orion, you could see, if you see those three stars, you know what it is, right? Right. So that's true of a lot of things with the remedies. It's like, you don't have to ask, you know, it's there, if a situation is complicated and you don't have success on the first remedy, you might have more questions. But, you know, if you got the first three stars, in an acute remedy, you would know which one. And there are a lot of books to help people.
Let's see, this is a great starting book.
Yeah,
this one is a great starting book.
So this one, Homeopathic Remedies, a quick and easy guide to common disorders and their homeopathic treatments.
So yeah, if you just opened it at random, you would see that it's organized a lot by condition, and that there might be, well, wouldn't you know, if you open it at random, that's the one place that it won't work. There we go, anywhere else.
Anxiety.
So there's a list of 6 remedies, and it's giving you the key symptoms that go with those, with that remedy. Anxiety, we're talking about acute anxiety here. If somebody has chronic anxiety, they probably ought to see a professional to work with that. But if you had that anxiety, like you mentioned before, if you had to go give a presentation that your next year's salary was going to depend on, and then you could look under anxiety and find the ones that are related to performance, and then see how is it showing up in your body. Like, so for you, that stress, is it producing a gastric problem, or a headache, or sleeplessness, or a kind of dopiness? And depending on how it shows up for you, then you'd be able to identify the right remedy. And those would be like the little stars.
Okay, so for the lay person, having a book and then just taking it, it's really about sort of acute issues that you can just go in and say, okay, here's my little collection of symptoms, and I think I need to try this, which is basically, I started using arnica after we got a sports medicine homeopathy